Hello everyone and welcome back to Chess Evolve Academy's YouTube channel. This is Women's Grandmaster Sabina Feuscher and one of the Academy's co-founders. As you guys are already used to by now, we decided to go over some of the games that our students, our Academy students, are playing online in our tournaments. If you want to find out more information about our website or academy, what we do, about the tournaments we organize, camps, and so on, feel free to check out our website, Chess Evolve Academy. The website is chessevolve.com, and you can scan the QR code below and follow us on Facebook as well. And we certainly hope you'll check out our Instagram page too. We tend to post a position every single day, and you might, if you enjoy chess, you might enjoy seeing those things. Without further ado, let's get into the game. For today, we actually have a game played by two bit higher rated players than what you were used to before. And I found this game to be quite interesting from the point of view of understanding pawn structures and understanding plans. White started with e4, black responded c5 and knight c3. There are a few other moves, of course, that white can play. You guys might be familiar with the main line, which is knight f3, but maybe the Smith-Morra gambit, but knight c3 is the closed Sicilian. At least that's what white wanted black to believe. Black responded with e6, probably attempting to get a French pawn structure, and this is something I enjoy as well when I play with the black pieces. But white switched back to an open Sicilian, but a bit of a different kind of open Sicilian, because after the capture he took back with the queen. This might be reminiscent of what is called the checkover variation, just that that one actually starts with knight f3 instead of knight c3. So the idea of taking out the queen early might not be super beneficial for white in this particular variation, because white won't have the opportunity to go c4, and this queen will be chased away quite fast. And that's exactly what black did with the move knight c6. White went back to d3. Now, personally, I haven't played this much with the black pieces, and I'm not an e4 player, but I feel that maybe you need to come up with another location for the queen, although there have been games with queen d3. Maybe here it might make a bit more sense to consider having that bishop opened. You're gonna castle short, want to continue castling alongside, then definitely go in d3, because you're leaving this bishop opened and you feel that here the queen is kind of protecting the center and just kept it out anyways. Black continued with knight f6, which I like, bishop f4, and what white is attempted to do is take advantage of the fact that black didn't push this pawn forward, and would love if they could just keep black from pushing it, but in this case, d5 was an option. I know black did not play this move, but it could have been an option. And in case of a trade, knight takes, white has the opportunity to trade off everything and get into this endgame where a black might be struggling with the isolated pawn after castle, but it's still a playable game. It's still something that you can play with black, getting the bishop out. This one here, covering your pawn, and I think even long castle is something that black can do. Black is not going to be worse. I think he definitely equalized here, so if you want to play an endgame, this would have certainly been a good option, but instead he decided to go bishop e7, which allowed white to castle long once again, kind of keeping control over this d6 square. So if you're not going to go d5, I wonder what you're going to do there. And I actually was quite surprised when I saw black playing this move e5. That was certainly not the move I was considering in this position. I would want to castle and play a position with opposite side castling, but black maybe thought they're not ready for the attack, and so they decided to kind of take the matter in their hands and be a bit more aggressive and get a pawn structure reminiscent of the Najdorf, better said, where black gives up this outpost, or Kalashnikov as well, And if white doesn't manage to trade the right pieces and keep that outpost, then black will get the chance to go for d5. So it was actually quite interesting to see this move being played. Bishop g3 seemed quite natural, and then black played d6. I feel that in a way, because we know this is a great outpost, I would have put my bishop in g5, because this bishop does not control this outpost, which means we would love it, give it for that knight so that we get rid of one of the pieces that black would utilize to control that square, and then white could bring a knight there. I would prefer this move a bit more to bishop g3. Later in the game, white ended up playing bishop h4 to give it for the knight, so that's why I feel that maybe he could have just done that before, and I don't see a way for black to win material or anything in that position. So d6 was played, knight g to e2. So in this position, if you look at it, you realize that development-wise, the players are about the same, but black's king is still in the center, and you know in this game black didn't castle. So I feel that with white, since you castled, you brought your king to safety, you got the pressure here, you might want to make some moves with tempo, or, you know, if not, maybe just king b1, but moves with tempo, I mean f4, followed by knight f3, put a bit of pressure, see what black is going to do with their king. If you don't play this game dynamically, what black wants to do after d6 is develop their bishop in e6, maybe castle, maybe not, and eventually they'll get this d5 in. Or if you place a knight there, who knows, maybe they'll just trade you, and then they will have a majority on the king side, which they plan on pushing, you know, forward. So I feel that white should have been a bit more aggressive. Instead, they went knight g2. Also, by the way, something to notice is when you castle opposite sides, you need to rush. There's going to be a race. Who gets to the other king first? And in this case, with the bishop in g3, white's pawn march is going to be delayed. That's why you kind of want to play this move, try to open up something on that side of the board. Black played the move a6, and so he didn't rush with the bishop out. He wants to play b5 and maybe bishop b7, rook c8, and start attacking white's king. a3. Now, why was that move played? I do not know, but you gotta be careful with the white pieces. Don't play moves like this on your kings, on the side where you castle, because that's gonna be a hook that's gonna attract the opponent to push a pawn forward. And because you pushed, you're gonna be forced to capture, the opponent will capture back, and another file is going to be open. And that's going to be a great benefit for black. So this move I'm not fond of. Black developed, and once again white should have tried to attack here. He played knight d5 as an attempt to keep the outpost, and I understand this move as well, but here after b5 I think he should have tried to hold on to the knight there. At least if he placed it there, try to keep a piece there. Instead he captured this bishop. And for me, no matter what the engine says, that it says it's fine, it's a no-no. Positional speaking, this bishop is a bad bishop, doesn't do very much, it just protects the pawn, and your knight is such a greatly placed piece. It's kind of like, just breaks my heart, because maybe because I love knights, but it just breaks my heart to give up that knight for the bishop. And that's why I believe it is very important to understand pawn structures, to understand plans and positions. Even if the engine tells you to do something, don't bluntly follow it. Try to think yourself what the ideas are in the position and come up with the right kind of. After king takes e7, maybe white thought that, you know, black had to capture this way, because obviously if you capture with a knight or with the, this pawn might be hanging at some point. But, you know, this king in the center is doing great, actually. It's well protected, well surrounded by pieces, covers the weakness. And now this rook opened up as well, so black can think about a way to attack white's king. Knight c3, again, at least if you did that, at least bring your other piece into the game. Try to take advantage that the king is here. Then you can go maybe bishop h4 or f4, f5. White did play bishop h4, but now queen c7, black is coming on the c-file, and another move that I'm not quite fond of, bishop takes f6. Why give up the bishop? There's no need for white to give that bishop. the knight is being pinned, so if you want to bring a knight to d5, now it's your time. If you want to play f4, this also works quite nicely, with ideas of maybe even here, f5, you know, just try to build up something on this side of the board, or maybe just f5 and g4, g5, because your knight is pinned, you can't move it, and this will kind of start a play for white, an attack, the central and king side. That is the side of the board where white should play. This is very important. Instead, what white did is they took that knight, which wasn't going anywhere, wasn't controlling, wasn't supporting d5, you know, because it was pinned. And now white came for d5, but see, you gave up a good piece and strengthened black's king in the center a bit more. And even if you get knight d5 in check, black can capture the knight, and then what are you gonna have next? You don't really have anything opened on black's king. That's the reason why I think overall the entire idea of white's was not very good. Now, for black, he started with this b5, and I don't know why he still played rook b8. He could have probably just gone b4 and, you know, try to trade these pawns and then come on the file. I usually like to tell my students that unless you have to support the pawn to push forward, just push the pawn forward, trade off, open up the file, and then bring in your rooks on a file that's already opened. Don't prepare too much sometimes, especially in more dynamic positions. You may give up some opportunities. Knight d5 was played, takes, and here queen takes. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this move because thinking about the pieces that remained on the board, the queen here doesn't really help white with anything. d6 is protected. f4, this pawn is super protected, so nothing's gonna happen. And so because of that, this queen here is just gonna be maybe exposed or potentially trapped. Instead, maybe pawn takes could have worked. This way the e file would open up, and maybe once again white can try some f4 to weaken up, maybe even sacrifice something later on. Just a few ideas could make a difference. And you know, let's just say this knight moves in the center, which seems kind of natural. Then maybe you can go, I guess, queen here. Check won't do much, and you definitely want f4. You are not doing so great. I think this knight is definitely better than the bishop, but at least you're doing something. You have an idea. Now you see in this position, black played b4. It's too late. There's no more knight in c3. When I suggested b4 earlier, I was attacking a3, but I was attacking this knight as well. So I was kind of forcing the trade of the pawn here, if you will. And this opens up two files for black to attack white's king. If you move the knight here, sure, we can capture, and then you can take with the pawn, and we can go here. This is not going to be the same thing if you go a4, for example, because, you know, we don't care as much. We actually, there's no c3 to chase the knight away and bring in new pieces into the attack. And that pawn eventually will fall. There's way too many weaknesses for white. If you ever play b3, you have to think about the queen infiltrating there as well. But when it was played in the game, there's no knight here, and white would have considered going a4. And here you're a bit behind with your attack on the c file. So let's just say black would consider to do something like this. Maybe black has to deal with something like this, where white actually keeps the file closed, and it might basically block all your attack. You gotta think very well to open up files. The sooner you do it, the better. And this is also not a very good choice by white. Again, like I do check some of these games a bit before with the engine, but I try to give you my thoughts on general terms. You know, you don't want to capture a pawn that will help the opponent open up files towards your king. Rather, put this bishop here, go a4, keep the position closed, you know, and don't go for pawns like that eventually will help the opponent actually attack you. Because from here, look at how nicely black has built up the attack. Maybe the best that move. Maybe he could have started directly, but he played rook d8 to make sure that pawn is protected. Queen b6, file is open, let's go on it. You know, white could have had a position with a blockaded b and a files, but now look at what happened. Knight comes into play. And here, a small miss by black that could have helped pieces come in much faster into the game, like this. He played rook a8 first though, and rook b8. Maybe c5 was more dangerous actually, but he played here. And after c3, it allowed black to win the queen. From here on, the game, I think, is not really, doesn't get that much benefit to look at. So hopefully what you've seen so far was helpful. You learned a few ideas of what to do with both colors, with both white and black, in case you're playing a Sicilian. And if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the below, and we'll try our best to get to them. Thanks for subscribing if you enjoy our videos. Let you know what else you want to see. See you in another video.